the YouTubes as well right now. And start off with, so here we are, Sunday again. TikTok does matter, I guess. Sunday again, back for Cosmic Matters. And thank everyone for taking the time to join me here today. I am the Matt of Cosmic Matters, Matthew Washington, and I've created the This Matters video series to kind of bring you a different perspective of the world that we live in. And by doing so, I hope to entertain your brain for a little bit and contemplate some things from a different point of view. And, we all have, and I try to start every show this way, but we all have our own beliefs about who we are, about, God, about the universe, about politics, about everything. And those beliefs come from the experiences that we've had, how we've been raised, what people have told us, the information we've consumed. And, what the objective is to understand that everyone's coming from a different point of view. I just made a video a couple days ago about, a friend of mine who was talking about, the situation with Charlie Kirk, and he's like, I unfriended people, and he gave this whole thing about how we need to have discourse and we need to be able to talk to each other. And, we have to, I guess the best way to come together to understand that everyone pretty much, I'm not going to say everyone, but I'm going to say 90% of people, 95% of people are not like anarchists. They don't want to tear everything down. They want what's best. They want what's best for everyone. Now, we disagree on how to come to those solutions, but understand that the people who feel the way they do, they feel that way because of what they've seen and what they've felt and what they've learned, and they can only make their opinions based upon the information that they have. I do this this talk here about Cosmic Matters, and up until I found Alan Watts, which was in my late 30s, I had a distinct view of the world. And then after I listened to what he said, I didn't even have the option to have the opinions that I currently do because I just didn't have the information. It never came into my circle, my being. And so understand that a lot of times if you're talking to someone and they're not agreeing and they seem like they're stupid, or they've come up with a conclusion that seems ridiculous to you. And whether or not it is ridiculous, they've come to it for a reason. And if we can start understanding, like, all right, well, where is this person's mentality coming from? And why is it there? And we start deconstructing that as opposed to attacking the person. I literally just had someone, literally right before I jumped on here, who sent me some comments, and then of course, they were not coming across too well, so they started attacking me personally, right? And I'm like, I understand. I'm sorry that you're frustrated, and my natural reaction was like, let me just write some mean stuff back, and then I was like, delete. I don't need to go there. So anyway, I'm off on a tangent again, but this is, it's not really tangent, because this is what we need. We need to understand, in order to have logical discourse, in order to we can't put people into the boxes of, if they disagree with me, then they're evil, or if they disagree with me, then they're stupid, or if they disagree with me, that that they have some ulterior motive. And so we can understand where people come from, and the best way to persuade someone, and this is what I'm doing here today, is my goal is really not to persuade you to believing in these things that I believe, but my intent is to just give you, as I said, just give you another perspective. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And we have a guest, so I'm going to bring him up in a minute. who's jumping in, I guess. But as far as that's really the objective of these conversations, and the goal, like I said, is not to convert you to believe what I believe. Instead, it's just to inform you, give you a worldview that you may not have thought of before. Today we're going to be talking about the consciousness of the universe, and my show is kind of designed to be a play. That's the way I look at it. You are the audience of the play. You come into the play knowing that you're going to be watching something, but the more you get lost in it, the more you suspend belief, because you all have your beliefs. We all have our beliefs. So for the time that you're here, suspend what your thoughts are about the universe, God, this and that, and you'll be able to pick them up. You'll be able to take your beliefs with you when you leave, and then you can go back to the way it is. So, but hopefully you learn something here today, or you see something, or you find something, get a nugget, and you are entertained and intrigued, and maybe even discuss it later on. So, some housekeeping I want to do here, and then I'll bring Super up. So I am going to be expanding my podcasting. So I'm going to tune this down to an hour. We're going to try to keep this to an hour and a half, anywhere between an hour and 90 minutes will be the most we're going to do here on Cosmic Matters. But what I will be doing on Mondays, starting tomorrow, today is Sunday, tomorrow I will be doing a 9 p.m., which we're going to talk about money and finances. So we're going to do Money Matters, which will be on Mondays. On Wednesdays, I'm going to do Humanity Matters, in which I'm going to talk more about what I've just been talking about. And I think with the place where we was, I didn't want to call it anything about politics, because people, when they hear politics, are immediately turned off. But politics, this is not it's not about left or right. It's about, that's why I called it Humanity Matters. It's about how can we all get better together? How can we interact together to come to solutions as opposed to the divides that we have? And then on Friday, we're going to do Future Matters, which is going to be basically me talking about Tesla stuff and the robots and that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about other tech, and we'll talk about other future things as well. So I'm going to bring up our guest, Mr. Super High. Are you there? Can you hear me? If you are there, I'm not hearing you. So, I do hear you. Yeah, there you are.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad. Turn my volume.
I was just Googling my name to see if I could find a picture. Super High Man 420, and what came up was Super High Man 420 is a username for social media and podcast creator. They've posted videos on topics such as trade, politics, and tariffs. They also have a podcast called EAT. You know what that's from back in the day. I was like, oh, I'm really out here. Oh, wow. How's it going?
It is going. It's going well. Life is lifing. There's a lot of stuff going on. I know you've called me a couple times. I've been quite busy.
Yes.
Finding a new career path, figuring out stuff, talking a lot. So, yeah.
I was also planning on doing that, and then I got a little scared because of Palantir.
Yeah.
The contract they have with the United States government, and the program they rolled out for police departments to comb through the airways of all text messages, phone calls, and social media in their local area without need for a warrant. So yeah, so like that really made me think that if people are, it's one thing when people get together and get somebody fired. When the government does it, that's actually the First Amendment. Like that's actually the First Amendment being breached. So that kind of scared me, and I was like, maybe I should pull back from posting, because if I do want to get a job, I've seen a lot of people fired recently for not writing anything, but for just reposting a something they saw. Just repost it on their story, not even publicly. It doesn't even have to be publicly. Somebody got fired for posting in a private chat using this new technology that Palantir has. So yeah, it's kind of
we're it seems like we're going down the road of thought and speech policing again, or authoritativism. We'll see. It's and as I kind of was saying, I don't know if you were listening as I started doing my opening here, but it's all done. Well, I would say 90% of the time, not 100%, but it's all done under the guise of trying to do the right thing.
right.
It's like like the people who are for let's say like the Jimmy Kimmel thing that just happened, and I know we're off topic, but whatever. The as far as what's going on with that, and the people on the right are like, yeah, this is righteous because this is something you shouldn't do. They shouldn't be promoting or making fun of someone who was just unalive because of the fact that this was a Christian person and they're comparing to Martin Luther King and blah blah blah, and then the left is like outraged that this has happened, but then the left was the cancel culture and got rid of Aziz Ansari because he he went on a bad date, and so, and then it was fine, then they go and cancel everyone, but everyone's doing it because they think they're doing the right thing. But
the government doing it and people doing it is two different things. Right. Like one is literally a First Amendment violation where the government is policing speech. The other is society policing speech. And if society's policing speech, that's not illegal. That's societal,
Right.
When the government starts doing it, now you have a very small percentage of people with power making decisions for the masses.
Well, that kind of goes into, again, I want to cover this on Wednesday, but it goes into social media people. Like, then does Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and whatever get to, when they are when they're not the government, but do they get to take down the White House's? Do they get to ban people for what they say? And they don't have, it's like the freedom of speech is not the freedom
as long as they're not taking taxpayer dollars, which they are.
Right.
So as long as they're not taking taxpayer dollars, they can do whatever they want. But as soon as you start taking taxpayer dollars to subsidize paying your people, building these infrastructure, now you are representative of the government. So if you take down people's speech, it is the government taking down people's speech because you are beholden. Like we saw Zuckerberg when Trump became president, like no one was kissing ass more than Zuckerberg. So, we know that the government was going to be controlling and policing, and also that's dealing with FCC. Mm-hmm. So like if you're dealing with the FCC, that's also government. And that's what happened with Jimmy Kimmel is the FCC made that decision based on a business deal that's going through.
Yeah.
And to make that business deal go through without problem, they basically took away Jimmy Kimmel's First Amendment.
What was I forget what's more. But anyway, all right. So we're going to chat about this more. That's a clip for. I definitely have all this planned to talk about on Wednesday night. I don't know if you'll be available, but
we'll table it. All you gotta do is say table it, and that'll end the conversation.
But cool. So today I have my as you see, I have my Eye of God nebula back behind me, and so this whole concept of the universe. So we've been talking about on just about every week here is the concept of us being a part of the universe, and not being a separate part of the universe, but being, let me rephrase, actually being the universe. You know, just as you would think the star is a universe, we are made of stars, right? And and the concept, it's a whole thing from Alan Watts. But the funny thing is, you know Brian Cox, I'm assuming, right? You still there?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'll
Sure,
be
no
on mute
problem.
for a second.
So I was thinking of this from a standpoint of Alan Watts, and Alan Watts talks about this whole concept, which I'm going to try to play. I'm going to try one more time, but he has a whole concept of, you know, we are not something. No, keeps. I'm going to try to play it from YouTube. We'll see if the sound comes through. But this whole concept of, you know, we grew out of the universe. We grew out of. We are not something new. You know, I have this conversation. I think I had this conversation maybe in episode 2 with Soup here, in that there's a particular uh, podcast or show or something where it's like 20 versus 1. Like they have somebody sit in the middle and a whole bunch of people sit around, and this person might be, I don't know, a pastor, and then there's a bunch of atheists, or it might be someone on the right and there's a whole bunch of people on the left, or somebody who's anti-abortion and everyone else is pro-abortion. They come up, and you might be, you know, LeBron James, you know, versus Michael Jordan, GOAT debate. Like they do this, and everyone comes up and they kind of argue and debate really quickly. And I watched an episode of it, and they were talking about abortion, and one of the questions that the person who was, and by with abortion, I call it pro-abortion and anti-abortion. I don't call it pro-life and pro-choice. Again, just from what we were saying a minute ago, everyone is pro-life. We're all alive. We're all pro-life. These words are being used to manipulate the mind. It's like it's creating a false dichotomy. Like if you say you're not pro-life, then that means you're against life. You know, like that's what our mind says. Like, oh, you're not pro-life, then you want to kill things. And or pro-choice, same deal. It's not pro-choice. Everyone's for choice. I don't think anyone's like, yeah, we should have all our choices taken away. So the wording of these things is used as even a sense of propaganda just in the titles, right? So it's pro-abortion or anti-abortion, right? That's the real stances of these two. So, but the interesting part of this was the question that was asked by the person who is anti-abortion, who was taking on all the pro-abortion people, was, well, when does life begin? Was asked, and both of them agreed that life began at conception. And I was like, I don't understand. That doesn't compute to me. Apparently, it computes to a lot of people, but I'm pretty sure egg cells are alive and sperm cells are alive. And so, how does life begin? Just because they joined? Now, obviously, I understand the concept. I understand what they're actually saying, which is human life. When does human life begin? And they're saying conception. But again, aren't both of those things already human? So the concept of it's just a change of form, right? It's a part of the mother and part of the father have come together to make a seed, and that seed grows into a tree, or into a human in this case. But I'm thinking of like an acorn or something along those lines. But these things are a continuation of life, not the start of life. It's not the beginning of life. It is the continuation of life. There was nothing that was non-alive. It's like to start something, you start a race, you're not racing, and then you start racing. To to say that this is the beginning of something, that means that before that it was not occurring. So life occurs. So then it comes down to where, and this is from last week's episode, we talked about our definitions and how words are not sufficient to explain what's going on in this whole cosmos. They are representations of the cosmos, but they are not exact. And this is why when we try to have discussions, when we get down to the finer details of things, everything falls apart, right? Because words are designed to compartmentalize a concept so we can talk, right? So we can communicate with each other. But they do not communicate everything. Do not communicate the whole definition of what that thing is. The example I always use is, everyone knows what a hand is and everyone knows what a wrist is. But where does your hand end and your wrist begin? Where's the exact point to it? So if you went, oh, right, that's my wrist, bend, right? So if I went a centimeter, that's cool. So if I went a centimeter to the left, closer to your hand, and that's not the wrist anymore, you could still say that's your wrist. You could still, but eventually the wrist would turn into a hand, right? So
I miss these times. I know exactly where you are.
Oh, so no, I'm just talking about how our definitions. Hey, what's up, Esmeralda? How our definitions and words are not sufficient to explain the universe. They are a tool. They're a communication tool that allows us to have ideas with each other. But in order to actually comprehend everything, when you come down to definitions of things, I was just talking about abortion, right? When does life? We were talking about when does life begin, and they were both these people who were debating pro and con, or pro and anti abortion.
Dude, that's such a crazy conversation, because like you could get metaphysical and say that life began, and every time somebody's born, it's just the continuation of life, that there is no actual beginning. Like the life began before the earth was founded, and it's just been a continuation of life continuing, and one day life will cease to exist and go somewhere else. But that's
Were you really not listening to when I was talking? Because you literally just said exactly what I said.
I swear to God, I had the headphones on the ground. I was talking to my fraternity brother.
I know.
I love it.
Yeah, so we were talking about. I literally just said it's just a continuation. There's when they both agreed that life began. I was like, well, the sperm cell was alive and the egg cell was alive. So how did life begin?
Exactly. Well, I told you like years ago when you started telling me all this stuff, I was like, you like finished the last 15% of what I was trying to figure out, and it all just made sense after that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and yeah, I have the same. And this is the purpose of the porpoise, a dolphin. This is the purpose of doing this, is to bring this information, bring this type of, not even it's just a different worldview. It's a way to bring a new concept that that people don't even know is out there. Woo.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, very, very clearly.
Okay.
That's all right. So just bringing these concepts to people and understand that life is a continuation. So if you ask me, so those two people sitting in the debate were like, life began at conception. And if I was in that debate, I would say, well, life began, well, it always, I would personally, for me, now that I've done this whole research on us living in a black hole, and that not only does the universe have no beginning, but it has no end, or no end, but it had no beginning. So therefore life has always existed. As far as I'm concerned, there was no beginning. It's like, to me, that's like asking what's north of the North Pole. There is no
Yo, you just made me think of something, and I think you're gonna like it.
I always like it. Go ahead.
What if the same way that our body makes new blood cells?
Mm-hmm.
What if universes are just new blood cells and our blood cells only last for like what 2 to 4 days or something like that? What if like when our blood, like the universe as a blood cell, when it's done its job and fed whatever the larger thing is that we can't even conceive because the universe is the largest thing we conceive. But what if a universe is just a blood cell of trillions and trillions of blood cells in veins of something that's even more, stupendous, unbelievable, right? There we, yeah. We get into the attractive. That's what I'm saying. But what if like this is still just part of a blood cell? Like like
Doesn't this look like our circulatory system? Doesn't
oh
this
yeah,
look like our
oh yeah. The great
our
attractor is my god. That's my god.
but doesn't all this just, and the thing is when we look at this, I think did I have yeah, this is pretty cool, right? There's Andromeda, there's the Milky Way, there's, I don't know what the heck this is, triangular. But when we look at these types of, like every galaxy just being, or every star just being, like you said, like a blood vessel. Right? There's nothing that we find in the universe that's different than what we find within us.
Right. And just like in a blood vessel, like a blood cell is made up, a blood vessel is made up a bunch of blood cells, right? And the universe is like the blood vessel, and all of the nebula and galaxies are like the blood cells, and then within those blood cells is like your mitochondria. So your black hole at the center of each of those is just a mitochondria for each cell. Like, and everything big is small and everything small is big.
Right. Well, we talked about that in the black hole episode, that like what actually big and small even really mean in an infinite universe.
Right.
Like when you talk about infinity, what is, there's no, the concept of big or small doesn't even make sense.
Right.
Because there's always smaller and there's always bigger, and there's infinitely smaller and infinitely bigger. So then whatever thing that you're talking about is.
We need tools to find things smaller, and we need tools to find things bigger, because our tools can only understand a Planck length, right? And our other tools can only understand the visible universe. So we still need better tools, because imagine if we were able to shrink down to the size of a Planck. Would we see a new universe? Would we enter a new understanding of reality that is just, unbelievable and vast, maybe even identical or the opposite, It's crazy.
Yeah, so we're talking about, for those who are listening and don't know what Planck length is. So a Planck length is 1.6 to 10 to the negative 35 meters. So 10 to the negative 35 is 10 with 35 zeros at the end of it.
Control scroll up one time on your page.
Control scroll up. What do you mean? So
hold control and then roll the scroll thing up.
Oh,
just one time.
Zoom it.
Look, go up.
Hold
a little
on.
bigger.
You want to see this part?
No, just so it'll be better for the people watching.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
I can also do this. Maybe I can.
There we go. Yeah.
No, we'll go with this. We'll go with this for us. You don't need to see
while we're reading it.
Yeah. So yeah. So Planck length. So 10 to the negative 35 zeros. Actually, I just had. Let's see if I have it here. No, I don't. I thought I kept it. Just like understanding, like, so here's a meter, a millimeter, a micron meter, a nanometer, picometer, a femtometer. So anyway, so look, the smallest one on this one is, and so this is when you're talking about, they're showing here like an atomic nucleus is around 10 to the negative 15. That's the atomic nucleus. So now you're talking about Planck, which is add another 20 zeros as far as small. Actually, I was listed. I think I did it on the last episode where Brian Cox said that if you take, now I'm gonna botch it up. It was something like if you take the atom, the size of a nucleus of a of an atom, and you expanded it to the size of our solar system, that that an actual atom at the center of it would be how small Planck is. something to that ridiculousness size, and in the small. So
crazy.
Yeah, and so the point being is, so you're talking about an infinite universe in either way, big or small. What does big or small even mean? And that goes back to the aliens playing marbles with with our universe at the end of Men in Black. It's like, what is it, or what does the size even matter? It's not even relevant. It's relevant because it's relevant to us. Just because we're living in a certain level of it, but at different levels of magnification, different things are happening. But when you look at the universe, when you look at how, the thing behind my head looks and how our actual eyeball looks, that's why it's called the eye of God. You see the same things. And even talking about the universe being intelligent or conscious, we, if I remember correctly, there was an experiment done, I want to say in Japan or in England, where they had like this. They actually made the subway system. They made a model of like the ground or whatever, or the streets and everything, and then they like grew some kind of moss, and gave it like different nutrients at different where they wanted where they wanted to go. And they let the moss grow to like show the most efficient way to get from point A to point B around these different obstacles.
Yeah, in Tokyo.
Yeah, it was Tokyo. And
yeah,
so
to make their subway system.
Right. And isn't this the way that, and so how is that not intelligence, right? Like we have these concepts of intelligence and consciousness and these things that we don't even have answers for, but we look at ourselves as conscious, but we wouldn't say the moss is conscious but why? And the consciousness that we have, the ability that we have, I say this, and again, this is repetitive, I say this almost all the time, but the consciousness that we have, the ability that we have to do things, we don't know how we do them. We don't know how the words are coming out of our mouth. We don't know how we're moving things. I don't know how I'm doing this right now. If you said, write down in words how you do all these things. And those are the conscious things. And also how I beat my heart, how I made my skeletal system, how I grow or don't grow my hair, right? These are all things that we do that we think we know that we're doing, but it's like the universe is behind the scenes laughing at us. Like these people think, like they don't, they just take for granted that they think they know these things, but then they don't. Like if they're actually called to the carpet, like, oh, hey, tell me how you moved your lips to form that word. What did you actually do? And then Alan Watts actually has a thing where he says, when we make decisions, we have decisions that we make, but how did you decide to decide? When you make the decision, did you decide that you were going to make that decision, or did you just make so the decision is something you think is conscious, but how you came to decide to make the decision, how did you do that? and it goes deep into who is this you that you're talking about. And what we're trying to get at, what I'm trying to get at least, is the you is the universe. The universe is making all these decisions and doing all these things, and it's just watching you. We are the apertures of the universe watching itself. Because if you're an entity that's going to live forever, infinite amount of time, then what else is there to do other than make a whole bunch of finite things that think they're going to die, make it you, and and then have them run around and get wrapped up in trying to pay bills and and do this and do that and play sports and have life and death. And why do you think we love movies and stories so much? Like, if you think about the universe is just watching it. When my father passed away, I said this at his eulogy when I gave it, is it's just a story. Our lives are just a story that the universe gets to watch. And in the fact that there's 7 billion stories going on right now on this one little tiny planet. And why not have, when you think of like quantum physics and the multiple worlds theory, why not have every single time a choice is made, a different universe pops up or a different dimension pops up that follows that? We had this discussion, we did a show on this, like, why I all of a sudden don't believe in free will anymore. I don't know if you remember that show.
Yeah. Well, I remember the show, but I don't remember exactly what you said.
So the concept is free will means that you have a choice to do A or B. You come to door A and you come to door B, and you think you choose A. But really what happens when you come to that choice is 2 different universes pop up, and in one universe you go through A, and one universe you go through B.
Oh, branch timeline theory.
Right. And so that concept,
and there's 2 consciousnesses, one that's you and one that exists in the other branch where you made a different decision.
Right. And it's not like one is you and one isn't you. They're both you.
Yeah.
You just don't have you just happen to live in the world where you went through A. And a whole other world happened when you went through B. So therefore, henceforth, no free will, because every choice is made.
What's crazy is how many choices are made in between A and B.
All the time.
Because like every nanosecond is a different choice.
Yeah. And so now you get to the point where you're like, well, is that now your brain starts to bend, and that's when we start to go, well, that's not possible, right? It's not possible that every person in every house, car, person on planet Earth, there's a different timeline where they are, and the question is, why not? We just talked about Planck length, 10 to the negative 35. The universe, how big, I think the biggest number that they have come up with is it's not a Google, it's a Googleplex, which is 10 to a Google, a Google is 10 to it's a 10 to the 100th power. Yes, 10 with 100 zeros. And then a Googleplex is 10 to that number, to the Google, to 10 to 100 power. So, and in an infinite world, that's not even big enough. So why not? Why can't there be? That's why the concepts of infinity are so weird when you get to these points, because it's like, no, that couldn't happen. Why not? Just because your mind can't wrap around it? Is it? It's one of the things. Elon talks about when he talks to engineers. It's like, well, is it the laws of physics, or is it, what's going on? Like, is it physically able to happen? Then let's try to make it happen. If the laws of physics, the only laws that exist are the laws of physics, let's try to figure that out. And everything else is is up for debate. So anyway, what I wanted to so my point I was getting to here is this concept came to me when I discovered Alan Watts, right? And he started kind of getting to the concept of the universe is us. And actually, I want to see if I can play this. And Soup, you're gonna have to let me know if you can hear it.
Okay.
Want to do okay, we share screen here. Let me pull it out into a separate window first. I know I can play, so I figured out I can play things if, and the sound comes through if I download them, but I don't know if I can play them if the sound comes through when I just share the screen. So let me remove this. Pull this up. I need a Jamie.
What?
I said I need a Jamie from Joe Rogan's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There, we can see it. Now let's see if we can hear it when I play it. Actually, turn it on here. This is short. It's only like 2 minutes. I'm sure you've seen this. Or maybe you haven't. Can you hear that?
No.
Yeah, no.
It might be playing on YouTube.
No, actually, somebody told me that I was doing this before. So you can't hear that. You can just see it, but you can't hear it.
Right.
Damn it.
On StreamYard, you probably need to click on the little plus box next to the camera at the bottom. And then click share screen. And then
this plus box.
It's going to say share that specific screen, and it should.
Yeah, I got that. I got this. That's how I got it. Oh, to share audio. To share audio, share a tab instead. Oh.
There you go. There you go. You got to share the tab. Yeah, that's how TikTok Studio is. You got to share the tab as well.
We're learning. We're learning here. So then. Oh, got it. Now, let me put this back. Let me put the tab back down. Maybe. Bear with me, folks. The 1 or 2 people in here. It's going to be worth it. Trust me. All right. Now let's try it one more time. All right. Let's go. Come on. Work.
And every summer it produces apples.
Now?
And we call it an apple tree. Because the tree
Still can't.
That's what it does. Now here is a solar system inside a galaxy. And one of the peculiarities of this solar system is that at least on the planet Earth, the thing...
I hear it now.
Oh, you can?
Yep.
Got it. All right. So we're gonna start it over. All right. So this is a 2-minute piece from Alan Watts. It's called Appling and or Peopling. And here we go. Can you hear me?
I can hear it, yeah.
Look, here is a tree in the garden, and every summer it produces apples. And we call it an apple tree. Because the tree apples. That's what it does. Now here is a solar system inside a galaxy, and one of the peculiarities of this solar system is that at least on the planet Earth, the thing peoples. In just the same way that an apple tree apples. Now maybe 2 million years ago, somebody came from another galaxy in a flying saucer and had a look at the solar system, and they looked it over and shrugged their shoulders and said, just a bunch of rocks. And they went away. Later on, maybe 2 million years later, they came around and they looked at it again. And they said, excuse me, we thought it was a bunch of rocks, but it's peopling. And it's alive. After all, it has done something intelligent. Because you see, we grow out of this world in exactly the same way that the apples grow on the apple tree. If evolution means anything, it means that. But you see, we curiously twist it. We say, well, first of all, in the beginning, there was nothing but gas and rock. And then intelligence happened to arise in it, like a sort of fungus or slime on the top of the whole thing. But we're thinking in a way, you see, that disconnects the intelligence from the rocks. Where there are rocks, watch out. Watch out, because the rocks are going eventually to come alive.
By the way, that was animated by Trey and Matt Stone, Trey Parker from the South Park people. So something that was said there that I think is really super interesting is he said the intelligence, we think of intelligence coming into it. Like, so I'm curious, when the people have the discussion about abortion, do they feel at conception that zygote is intelligent or has a consciousness? Or when does the consciousness, I've heard people say, oh, it's when, the brain starts working or the brain firing start happening or whatnot. So they're associating brain with intelligence, right? Or consciousness. So, but that's that's not superimposing. That is, what's the word I'm looking for? Presupposing. It's presupposing that you need brains to have intelligence. Now, we then have to come up with what is the definition of an intelligence, right? Because if the idea of intelligence is to be able to, or consciousness, however you want to word it, I would put those two classifications together. What is that? Is it something? Is it having a goal and then working a way to get to that goal? Would we consider that intelligence or consciousness? Because if that's the definition we want to use, then we don't need brains, right? Because we can see amoebas, we can see single-celled organisms, move towards food, move away from light, move in certain ways that would signify that they are consciously making a decision to do something. Now, because we're humans and we like to look at ourselves as like the best thing ever, we don't want to think of that as intelligence, right? Because it's not our type of intelligence. But what the heck are you? What are you? Isn't the things inside your brain, aren't they just cells? Isn't a lot of the stuff in you, your gut and everything? We've had this conversation before, Soup, where we looked up what percentage of the body, the cells in your body are actually human DNA. And so
a lot of them,
but not we're not 100%.
Yeah,
right?
Not a lot. Most of it's just other stuff.
Right. So what is this you that you're talking about? So then couldn't we say that the you, I think I was listening to a conversation by Alan, and he was talking about how in America, in Western civilizations, when we describe who we are, we center ourselves like in our head, right behind our eyes. That's kind of where we see us. But he talked about in certain other cultures, they talk about it being their heart. That's their center, or that's where they see themselves. Other cultures see it in their gut, right? Let me see if I can share this. Oh no, wrong side, wrong screen. So the concept is, I'm going to remove that from the stage. I'm going to move this into the stage, add to stage. So let's see here. Only a fraction of your DNA, between 1.5 to 7%, is uniquely human. Oh, this isn't even. Oh, so this is just what part of your DNA makes up human.
Right.
That's not what I wanted, but that's kind of interesting to think of as well, because we just shared DNA with everything else. What percent of? Huh. Oh yes. All right. Well, the AI overview is shitty. What percent of our cells? Let me ask the question different. Do not have human DNA. Let's see. So there we go. A large majority of cells in the human body do not contain human DNA. While the exact percentages vary, studies suggest that microbial cells, like bacteria and fungi, made up a majority of the body's total cell count, possibly up to 70%. So up to 70% of your body could not even be human DNA. So again, what are we talking about, this you? Who is this you that's so important? And are you not your body, right? So anyway, so this whole concept, so this concept of intelligence and consciousness, and like I said in our last episode, like every time when we try to nail things down specifically, it doesn't work. It never works. It's like trying to take a cup of a river. I said this 100 times last time, but it's like trying to take a cup out of the river and then walking over to someone and say, "Look, this is the river," and they would be like, "No, it's a cup of water." Because in order for it to be a river, it has to be flowing. It has certain properties to it, and when you try to take a section of it and explain it, it's never going to be sufficient. And that is what we are trying to do when we talk about human beings and all these things, these forms, these illusions, really, of, or just different forms that the universe is taking, and you are one of those forms. And so these whole concepts came, and when I learned from Alan Watts. By the way, did you have anything you wanted to share about that little video, by the way? Had you seen that before? I'm sorry.
No, I hadn't seen that.
Oh, no, really?
Oh, no, Peopling? Yeah, no, I've seen that one. Yeah, no, that's a good
one. Any thoughts about that?
No.
Okay.
I think you said it.
Well, also the aspect of another thing that Alan talks about is that there are no nouns. He's like, when the way the English language is set up, it's to have a noun and then to have a verb explaining the noun. But he's like, but in real life, and actually in other languages, they don't have nouns. Like there are no person, places, or things. There's just doings. There's just, so you are a human being. You're the act of doing what humans do. There's not something that's doing the dancing. There just is the dancing.
Right.
And so the concept of a lot of times, because we think in language, we use this language to try to explain and think that the language is the reality, but the language is the representation of the reality, and the reality is not. There is no nouns. There's only. I mean, if you want to have a thing, the thing is everything. The universe is the thing, and the rest of it is just things that the noun is doing. So the concept of peopling, and that the rocks are alive. So this is why I had a whole 3-hour discussion on stereo with was it Ordinary Atheist and a couple other people on stereo. And I was trying to explain to that. Oh, and that nerdy guy, I forgot his name too. But we were discussing consciousness, and I was trying to swing them over to that. Yes, rocks could be considered having consciousness, just because you have just because something touches you, and that makes some neurons fire, and it goes to your brain, and it tells you something's touching you. Is the same way a gong doesn't have a brain, doesn't have a sophisticated way, but it reacts. It makes a sound. It makes a reverberation. And why do we take our neurons firing and the reaction that we have any different than any reaction any other thing has to its surroundings?
Right.
So now nobody wants to think of it that way because it makes us feel not important, and we are very important. Oh, one other thought I had.
After this thought, I am gonna hop off.
Okay.
And we are getting close to your 1 hour mark.
Got it. Oh man, I didn't do any. So we'll have to make a part 2 then. So the reason the other thought was, he said growing, right? So people are growing from the rocks. And then he mentioned if evolution is anything, it's that. So maybe we look at evolution in the wrong way. Maybe it's the wrong word. Because evolution sounds to me like just growing. Right? Because what we call growing, like we see an acorn growing into an oak tree.
Right.
The acorn is one thing. We wouldn't look at that and say, "Oh, look, it's an oak tree," and the tree is a different thing. We wouldn't say, "Oh, that tree is an acorn." Right. But when does the acorn turn into the tree? It's got through all these different stages, but it's just growing. We call that term a growing because it's one, because we see it, the form that we see, it's all one continuous form. But just because now the tree sheds some acorns and that grows into other trees, is that not still the same process of growing? Even though it's 2 different trees.
Is it 2 different trees?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so if we look at 2 trees, like us, it is 2 different trees. That's my point. That's the point I'm trying to make. But we would look at 2 different trees and say, oh, those are 2 different trees. But why is it not just one tree that's continued to grow? And therefore, if you think of evolution is just, it's just continuation of growth. At no point does life stop. It just changes, changes along the way. And those changes eventually lead to something that's so different as time has gone on that we then say, well, that's something different.
Right.
Like the acorn and the tree. So we give it a different name, but it's really not. It's just life. It's just the one thing.
Well, with that, yeah. I am going to hop off and let you wrap up this 6th episode of Cosmic Matters. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, and we'll talk about some football later on if you're around.
Take care.
All right, talk to you later, brother. So, with all that being said, yeah, wow, this is good for me too, because I've never thought of it in this way either. And I wanted to go into, which maybe we'll do next week. So I do want to try to keep it short. But so after watching all this stuff, after learning all these things about Alan Watts and these concepts, one of the things that's important to me is that these aren't just brain thoughts. These aren't just musings. They aren't just, there's got to be concrete evidence of these things. And this is why, when we did episode 3 about us living in a black hole, we did a lot of scientific, it wasn't just like woo-woo stuff. It wasn't just common sense. It wasn't just thinking about this. It was actually now looking at the measurements, looking at science, looking at how do these things actually apply. It's not just saying, oh, this kind of looks like an eye, the thing above me here or behind me. And so, but do these things really, is this really, there really scientific evidence for this? And so I went through this whole concepts with Alan Watson, learning about it, and it's very interesting. But then I found this video from Brian Cox. And if you don't know who Brian Cox is, let me bring him up. So here's Brian Cox. Brian Cox is an English physicist and musician. He's professor of particle physics at the School of Physics and Astronomy in the University of Manchester and the Royal Society Professor for Public Engagement in Science. All right, he is best known for public speaking, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so yeah, pretty smart dude. Studied physics at Manchester, earned a Bachelor of Science with first class honors. Then he completed Doctor of Philosophy and degree, University of Manchester. I didn't know that, though. That's kind of interesting. All right. Cool. So he's worked at CERN, done a lot of particle physics, all this stuff. So now, so this is someone who's not a woo-woo person. This is someone who is doing research. And let me put myself back up here. So I wanted to just start this, and then we'll finish it maybe next week. But I found this, and then I was like, ooh, we got to talk about this. Just lost my TikTok thing here. All right, that's good. Let me find this download here. No. Oh, I know why, because I'm looking at the wrong spot. Let's see, inside a black hole. Ah, here it is. Sorry, guys. Took me a little minute to find this.
A night sky where billions of stars scatter across the darkness. In that,
I'll find a way that doesn't start immediately when I pull it up. But so this is Brian Cox, and the title of this was, or is the universe aware? Is the cosmos aware? And so now you're talking someone from Alan Watts' side, who is a philosopher, talking about this, to now someone on Brian Cox's side who is a scientist. One of the things that I talk about when I talk to people who are in religion is that if your religion contradicts science, and what science, for me, what science is just observing the universe as it is and trying to figure it out and putting explanations to it. So if your religion is counteractive to science or countering science, then I'm not going to believe your religion, right? One of the things I like about Alan and is that everything that he said, or the concepts that he's put out there, they're not like, you don't have to have a special book that only, there's no like authoritatism. God has spoken to me and told me this specifically. You can just look at the universe and it matches up with all the philosophies that are told, which is why I tend to believe them more. And now, when we talk about this whole concept of us being the universe and the universe being us, and I use the word universe, but you could put in the word God if you wanted to. And all religions kind of put that part in there where they say you are a part of God. So what are we talking about? Like, I'm just the only reason I don't use the word God is because God has a certain connotation that separates. There's an entity called God, not us, right? And there's judgments and things and rules and things that they want, whereas the universe, the way I look at it, if we're a part of the universe doesn't care. The universe just wants to see the story. That's it. Now you get into like morality and all that stuff, which we're not going to go into. We'll do a different episode on that. But it's like going to do the shorthand. Everything that we see as moral or immoral, the universe does it all, right? Like we would see killing as immoral, right? Well, guess what? We're all going to die. The universe kills every single one of us, right? So again, and again, substituting the word universe in the word God, right? So, but we all die, right? So we all these things that happen. So maybe I'm going to do another episode on morality. It's always a touchy situation and a touchy concept for people when you talk about that stuff. But what I found is this concept that I'm talking about matches very well with Brian Cox. We're going to listen to a little of this, and then we will wrap it up for today in this episode of Cosmic Matter. So let's pull Brian back up and let him go.
That moment, a question quietly forms: is this vast universe simply unfolding according to blind laws of physics, or is it somehow aware of itself? For as long as we've been human, we've asked what it means to be conscious. But here's the real twist. When we look out at the cosmos, it's not just us doing the looking. We are made of stardust. Our atoms were forged in ancient stars, which means that when we gaze into the universe is, quite literally, gazing back through us. That idea is as unsettling as it is profound, because if consciousness is not just an accident that arose on a small planet around a modest star, but something woven into the fabric of reality itself, then our understanding of the cosmos is incomplete. Tonight, we're going to follow that question to its limits. Is the universe itself aware? Could consciousness be fundamental to existence? These are not only scientific puzzles, they are challenges to our very sense of who we are. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, we'll see that the answer to this question may redefine not just our place in the universe, but the universe's place in us. Consciousness is often described as the most intimate.
I've got to pause it there. So this is a concept that even I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about. I've heard countless other people talk about, because everything that's out in the universe is inside of us. And so we are a part of it. And so therefore, why would we think I'm conscious, but these stars aren't, right? If we're all the same, if it's all, now we might have different levels of consciousness, we might have different levels of intelligence, and we see our intelligence as something special, but that's only because we're us, right? But the overall intelligence, of the universe is many times more intelligent than us. So it's just it's an interesting concept that I want to keep going with. So let's listen a little bit more.
And yet the most elusive of mysteries. Each of us knows it from within, this feeling of being aware, of experiencing, of existing. And yet, when we try to define it, when we ask what it actually is, the answers dissolve like mist under sunlight. Scientists can map the brain, trace the flow of electrical signals between billions of neurons, and even watch patterns of activity light up when we think, dream, or feel. But that still doesn't explain the central mystery. Why should this activity create experience at all? Why does matter, arranged in such a way, begin to feel? This is often called the hard problem of consciousness, not because it's difficult in a technical sense, but because it cuts to the very foundation of existence. We can explain how neurons transmit impulses, how sensory organs detect signals, how memory is stored and retrieved, but none of that tells us why a lump of grey tissue inside our skull gives rise to something as rich as a sense of self, the vividness of colour, or the pain of loss.
Right. So this was something that I dealt with a little bit. So when I gave up the concept of, religions and gods and those types of things, I became a materialist and materialism. And so I just said, look, all there is just what we see. There is no deeper sense of anything. There's none of the spiritual stuff that really exists. It's all material. And then I took a philosophy class, and the philosophy class, in that class, they talked about, C fibers firing, right? And they said when you have this kind of thought, it's C fibers in your brain firing, right? Let's just say pain, for example. But we don't feel C fibers firing in our brain. We feel pain. And so the conscious part of us, right? The part that we call the mind, right? Or the consciousness. How does something that's material, C fibers firing, affect something that's immaterial, our thoughts, our brain, something that is not material? How do these two things interact? Like, in order for something to be immaterial, it means that it doesn't materially interact with anything else, right? Because if it could interact, then it would be a material thing. So our thoughts are not material things. But how does changing the structure of our brain, a material thing, actually change the immaterial thoughts? And vice versa. How do our immaterial thoughts, how do I do that? How do I make my hand move with a thought to then make neurons, physical material fire, or make my shoulder go up and my hand go up and my fingers move? And how does that work, right? And so that was a problem for me. I was like, well, if I can't think there's no non-spiritual, I don't want to call it spiritual, I want an immaterial, let's just call it that, an immaterial element of me, right, that affects the material. Like, how do these two things? So we can't just all be material. So that kind of shattered that. And for a while, I just didn't think about it for a while until I found Alan Watts, and then I was like, oh, I'm starting to understand. Right. All right. So let's do a little bit more, and then we'll wrap up.
And here lies the first step into the question of whether the cosmos is aware of itself. Because if consciousness can emerge from mere matter, then perhaps we need to re-examine matter itself. Perhaps the ability to experience is not an accidental byproduct of evolution, but a potential written into the universe from the very beginning. Think of it this way: the atoms that make up your body were born in the hearts of ancient stars. Hydrogen fused into helium, then into heavier elements like carbon, oxygen, iron, the building blocks of life. Over billions of years, those atoms drifted through space, gathered into planets, and on at least one world, combined into structures capable of asking questions. The mystery is not just that we are alive, but that we are aware of being alive. And in that awareness, the universe itself acquires the ability to reflect. It is no longer just matter in motion. It is matter contemplating its own existence. But before we rush too far,
So I like that. We're not just atoms in motion, but we're atoms contemplating our own existence, right? Because is that not what we actually are? Are we not just a bunch of atoms sitting here contemplating the universe, contemplating what we are, looking at ourselves? And I was mentioning this to Soup before he left. Everything that we see, everything that the universe is, when we take it, if we want to look at ourselves as a separate entity, we love all the same things. We do all the same things that the universe does. We love finding out things about ourselves, right? You watch, I go on TikTok right now. If I scrolled, I'd find somebody doing some tarot card readings, and I'd find somebody, reading horoscopes, and we love when somebody tells us something about ourselves, and we go, wow, isn't that cool? Like, I didn't even realize I was doing that, right? We see a therapist and they tell us and explain things. We talk to our friends and they tell us, here's the blind spot. Here's what you're not realizing. We find something out about ourselves and we're like, wow, isn't that cool? Isn't that what the universe is doing? Isn't that what we are doing? Isn't it? Aren't we just the universe finding out about itself? And then what does it do? It actually sketches us, and then it makes another one of us, so we can learn it again. And we can figure it out again, and we can figure it out in different ways, and we can all have our own experiences of the universe, and therefore come to our own conclusions and our own viewpoint of it, right? So isn't that the same? Like when we find something on our body, we get a little tag, or we get like a piece of skin, or we find something and we're like, oh, what is this? What? Oh, I got a pimple there. What is that? What is that feeling? Oh, my back, I got a twinge. What is that? What muscle is that? Right? We're excited about that stuff. We're excited to learn about ourselves as the universe does. Why do we love stories? Why do we watch movies? Why do we sit and listen to someone? One of the things that we teach in sales is that people don't buy because of what you do, but they buy why you do it. And so it's like, so why do we get so invested in a story of somebody that we never met before? We don't know anything about. I was watching. When I go jogging, I listen to like David Goggins. And David Goggins had in his book had his mom on, and he was interviewing his mom, and they were telling this amazing story, and I was so wrapped up into it. I like ran like a mile and a half before I realized what had happened. And I was like, well, why am I so wrapped up in this? Isn't this what the universe gets wrapped up in? Isn't this them? Isn't every single, like when you walk around, you go outside and you look at houses, one of the things I sell solar panels, right? So I look at people's houses all the time. But as you go down the block or as you drive somewhere today and you see the different cars going by and you see the different houses, just think that every single one of these houses, every single one of those cars that you have, there's some people in there. And those people are all having their a whole life, everything that's going on in your life, they have the whole thing going on over there. And it's an incredible story. They have all kinds of travesties going on, all kinds of successes, all kinds of failures. They have all kinds of interconnections with other people. They have all kinds of memories of things. And just as your memories and your vision and your life is important to you, though, it's just as important to them. And it's a whole story. It's a whole thing. And so wouldn't that be cool? Doesn't that seem like something that the universe would want to know, all the stories, right? So we sit and we watch movies, we watch stories. Oh, did you see that Netflix show about this and that? And if the story is credible, by the way, the more realistic it is, the more we get into it. The more we're like, wow, that's freaking cool, right? And so isn't that what the universe does? The universe does the exact same thing. And watching us. And so all the, what does the universe like to do? Build things and then destroy them, right? We build things up and then it gets rid of it. Watch your kids. Watch kids when they're 3, 4, 5 years old playing with blocks or playing with something. They create something and then they destroy it. They're on, they're in what's the game? Minecraft, right? It's like, let's build. They spend hours and hours and hours building something. I know, like people my age, we see something like Minecraft and we're like, well, what's the objective? Like, there is no objective. We just build stuff and then we destroy other stuff. And then we go out and we search for stuff and we try to find some diamonds and we try to find this. We go on a little adventure and that's it. But there's no end. There's no winning the game. And kids love it, right? So it's the same with us. It's the same way we are. There is no winning at life. There's no winning. Why do people who have all the success in the world some of them end up killing, committing, unaliving themselves, right? As far as that goes, because there's no end, right? It's the dance, and by the way, but no, fortunately, we get to end. We actually get our stories to end, but the universe doesn't. It just keeps going, right? And so I don't know what put me on that tangent there, but all right, we're gonna do one more clip from Brian, and then we'll wrap it up for today, and then we'll come back to this next week. Let me bring it back.
Must pause on the puzzle itself. Why does consciousness exist at all? One line of thought suggests that consciousness is an illusion, a trick played by the brain to integrate information and generate behavior. Yet even if that were true, the illusion itself is still experienced, and an experienced illusion is no illusion at all. Another suggestion is that consciousness is an emergent property, like liquidity in water. No single molecule of HNO is wet, but when enough of them gather, wetness appears. In the same way, no single neuron is conscious, but when billions connect, awareness somehow arises. But the leap from firing neurons to the taste of chocolate or the color red remains unexplained. Emergence describes the appearance of complexity, but not the existence of subjective experience. So
that's everything I just talked about, like fibers firing and whatnot. It's like, how do these things come together to make an experience, to make an awareness within us? That is the ultimate question. And I think the ultimate answer is, this is what the universe is doing. The entire universe is conscious. Everything. And so we are the whole, we are a sum of the part of the body of the universe. And as small as we think we are compared to everything, small and big do not matter. So I think we're going to end up there. I definitely want to go into more of that. I'd like to watch that also with Soup, the whole thing with Brian Cox. You can see that as well. And for this particular Sunday, again, I want to promote, I will be doing 4 podcasts. They'll be a little bit shorter than this. Monday, tomorrow night, 9 p.m., I will be doing Money Matters. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about wealth and finances. On Wednesday, we'll be talking about Humanity Matters, which kind of, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast. We got off on a tangent. And then Friday, we'll be doing Future Matters. These will be 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then Sunday, 10 o'clock, as we'll continue with Cosmic Matters. And that's where we are here as we wrap it up. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for, if you liked what we were covering here today, please feel free to like the video. Please feel free to share it. Your comments, I respond to every single comment. So please let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear them. And until next week, remember, Cosmic Matters.